Clear prompt. Welcome to the Fly Media Podcast, where we explore the skies through the stories of those who fly them. If you're an aviation enthusiast, a pilot, or someone who looks up every time they hear a plane fly overhead, then you've come to the right place. I'm your host, Osa, private pilot, content creator, and aviation enthusiast. In today's episode, I'd like to introduce a special guest, my wife, Tatum, who, as we call her, the pilot's wife. We're going to dive on into it, and we're going to talk about pilot training and aviation from the standpoint of a significant other. A brief introduction of my wife, Tatum. She is a school teacher, a lover of fun, adventure, and laughter, and has been enjoying our aviation journey thus far.
Definitely. I've been really enjoying flying with you. I think it's been an incredible experience, and I'm looking back on it, I think I'm really grateful that you decided to pursue it, no matter how it started, but I'm really grateful that you decided to pursue it. It's been really fun. I've been enjoying every little aspect of it.
So tell viewers a little bit about how we met and then how that conversation went when I initially said, hey, babe, I want to be a pilot and fly airplanes.
Well, we've been together for almost, I think 11 years now, married a year. So it's been a wild journey, wild ride. But we met in college. You were on the football team. I was a cheerleader, and we met at a football party. Very cliche story.
College romance. Something corny from a movie.
That's called cliche. Everyone I talk to about is like, oh, what a cliche the two of you are. And yeah, whatever, cliche. But it's been fun because I feel like I've seen you in every part of your life. I've seen you through college and then into your first job aspect, and then also going into fire. And then all the hobbies that have come with you being a firefighter too, which has been really fun. So it's been fun to see all of that.
Awesome. So let's unpack a little bit of that initial conversation when I came home and said I wanted to be a pilot. Talk a little bit about where we were and what was going on in our life around that time.
Yeah. We had just moved into our new house. Just moved in, just bought a house. And that's obviously nerve-wracking in and of itself because that's a lot of money being put forth. That's a lot of different financial responsibility than we're used to. And I remember when you brought it up, I was like, you're crazy. That was my first initial. I was like, you're crazy. I understand you need hobbies, but this is not one I don't think you should embark in. The only thing I'd ever heard about aviation is how expensive it was to get into it. And that's my initial thought, was the financial burden that it was going to put on you when we're also taking on this huge financial burden of moving into our new home as well. And that, I think, panicked me, as you know, because I'm a bit of a panicker in some ways, but also just thinking financially, I think one of the people between the two of us, I'm the saver. I don't know if you'd agree with me there, but
I would agree with you 100%. My whole concept of money is you can't take it with you when you die, so you might as well blow it. And we all know aviation isn't cheap as it is, so have fun and live while you can.
Yeah, which I love your perspective on life. I think that's why we balance each other out so well, is because you have that kind of live life now the way it is perspective, and I'm more of a reserved perspective. So you put the two of us together and we live a little bit of both ways, and I think that's perfect. But of course I panicked in the financial sense because I'm Tatum, so...
No, I think that makes perfect sense. You definitely do help keep me grounded, as I'm a bit of an adventurer and a wild child. I'm more of a, jump off this building, hit the ground, break every bone in your body, heal and figure it out later.
Yeah. But I think there was also the sense of my nervousness around knowing, although it's not necessarily a dangerous profession or dangerous hobby, I should say, not profession, it still has its accidents and issues with it, and you already having a dangerous job, putting a dangerous hobby on top of your dangerous job was the other thing I think that really panicked me. So financial and the potential for danger is kind of what got me, I think, initially. And that I initially came out very reserved about the whole thing and almost not trying to talk you out of it, because I don't think I ever try to talk you out of things, but trying to just be like, hey, these are some points I think you should think about before you really enter into this hobby.
That's a great point, and that makes a whole lot of sense. I have to agree with you there. It's definitely a dangerous hobby. You do hear about general aviation planes going down quite often. Usually it's, pilot error, and that's not to point a finger. That's just kind of how things work out.
Yeah.
Just to kind of to dig a little bit deeper, another aspect of that, you mentioned my job being kind of a dangerous one as it is. It also is one that takes me away from home quite a bit.
Yeah.
So how does that factor into a hobby that, is going to take a lot of studying and training and, hours on end, just kind of being who knows where up in the sky?
I did that part. didn't super bother me in some ways. I think, I mean, I'm used to being gone for 24 hours shifts for your fire job, but I didn't really, you do, and you ended up doing a lot of it when I was working, because you have those full days off. So a lot of, and you really made sure to put it during that time period. And I don't think I had any trepidation with you being pulled away. I don't think that was any of my initial thoughts when you first entered into it. I wasn't worried about you spending less time with me, just because I know that you need hobbies too.
Quick question. So what advice would you give to the significant other of someone who comes home and says, I want to be a pilot, whether it be for recreation or a new career?
I think the financial bit is a huge question to ask, and just make sure. I think every flight school has a different idea of pricing for the amount of hours, as do your flight instructors as well. So I think just having that general question, and how long do you think it's going to take for you to be able to pursue this certificate that you're trying to achieve? It is important to talk about the amount of time. I think I already kind of mentioned, but the amount of time it takes someone to do it is important, especially if you have children. We don't have children, so that's not even something I was worried about necessarily. But I could see, especially if you have children at home that you're both trying to take care of, that's a huge conversation to have around how is this going to work with breaking down responsibilities that you might have to kind of take a back seat on right now because you're doing something and pursuing this. I could see that being a conversation that some people could have as well.
So you're saying if I came home and said, hey, I'm going to start flying airplanes and such, I need you to watch little Timmy for the next, 6 months.
I don't think it'd be quite that kind of a conversation, but I think it's more, how are we going to break down these duties a little differently so you can do the things when you can do other things that are more maybe like background work to take the load off of me. I think just sharing the load is the biggest thing. And I don't think we necessarily had to have that conversation, but I could see that being a conversation that depending on your situation, where you're at in life, that could be a major conversation.
Now that you're on the other end of things and we've got the certificate or license and we're flying around and enjoying ourselves, has that changed any of your reservations going in, or do you think that your feelings would still be the same knowing what you know now?
I think they would still be the same. I think I would still ask the questions just to make sure that you fully have realized what it's going to take to be able to do something like this. I don't think my questions necessarily would have changed. I may have asked the question how am I going to be involved in this? Since it's such a big thing that you're doing, such a big financial responsibility that you're taking on. How am I going to be involved in this as well? How am I going to be able to reap the benefits of being as we say, a pilot's wife or a pilot's partner? What is in it for me? Because I think you're taking on such a huge thing, and of course, always going to be here to support you. But what do I get from it? Would be kind of a nice thing to know too. What is your outlook on this? What's your reasoning or purpose? And I don't remember if I asked you that question or not. I just knew that it was something you were super interested. You've been talking not in it, but you've been talking about it forever. And so I know you would put a lot of thought into it, but I also know you're the type of person who I don't have to worry about you. You think about things before you do them. Well, especially when it's something big like this, you've done your research and you had figured it out, thought about it. And you also know I'm a little bit more analytical. You presented facts to me too when you were thinking about going into it. So you approached it in the right way, I have to say. It really helped me with those questions.
My sales pitch worked, okay? My sales pitch worked. My background in business, analytics, and sales came in big.
It did.
And here I am, a pilot.
That was funny. But no, I think I would have just asked, what are we going to do with this? What's our goal? And I think we both love to travel. And so I already knew that going into it. And so I think I kind of figured, I was we're just going to use this to have fun and have a good time, because that's kind of our goal in life, is just to enjoy ourselves.
So now that we're on the back end, and you did mention that our goal is to travel and have fun, how have you been enjoying our adventures thus far?
It's been great just to see places that I don't feel we've ever or would have ever even thought of going to. Is so cool. It's that idea of being able to kind of fly in wherever and explore a little town that no chance we would have done previously is really, really cool.
So you mentioned some little towns and places that we went to go eat, the $100 burger, which is kind of something I'm super fascinated with and kind of addicted to.
Yeah.
The concept of just flying around to brunch, lunch, working on your skills by flying into a new airport. How have those adventures been? How has the food been? How have the views been from, 5,500 feet or so?
It's awesome. I think the water views are probably some of my favorite views. I think that comes from me growing up near the coast my entire life. But just those lakes that we've flown over quite a few lakes, I think, at this point, and they're beautiful and gorgeous. I love watching when the land goes into the lake and you can see the lake under, or not the lake, the land under the lake, which is really cool to be able to see that aspect of it. My science brain geeks out a little bit. But those have been really cool. And we're both foodies. We love food, and I love trying new food. So might as well go to little places. And the concept of the $100 burger is awesome, in my opinion.
So of the places we've gone for lunch, I know we flew to Colombia and went to, I believe the place was called Maddie's, which is just a short walk down from the airport. And then about a week ago, we flew up to Lamson outside of Clear Lake and went to Red's. Of those two, which had better food? Given we had breakfast at one and kind of lunch burgers at the other.
Yeah, it was a tough choice. I think I liked the concept of Red's a little bit better because it was a chef's focus restaurant, which was really cool. I got the grilled cheese when we went, and I thought it was so interesting. It scared me, but they were like, oh, little special tidbits. I'm like, what are these tidbits that are going to be in this grilled cheese? Turns out it was whatever the chef wanted to put in that day. So trepidatious, sure, because I don't like mushrooms. There are like certain things I'm like an absolute no on. Mushrooms are one of them. And bell peppers tend to be the other, which and that didn't happen. But it was the food, that chef focus restaurant was really cool.
I think that was a really cool little airport too. I liked flying in. The initial landing was absolutely horrible in my eyes. You were always like, it was fine. I hated it. So of course I made us do another quick lap, get another landing in before we took off. What did you think about the layout of that airport?
Being able to park the airplane right by the restaurant was cool. I mean, that was awesome. You can literally just leave the plane, and we were sitting there staring at the plane basically the entire time that we were eating at the restaurant, which was awesome.
Yeah, that definitely made life easy. We didn't have to take off any of the GoPros or cameras off the plane because we were sitting, 30 feet away from it, able to watch it. So that saved probably, 10, 15 minutes on each side, both going and coming.
Definitely. And which was nice. As much as I appreciate the fact that I don't know how to put all the cameras up for the most part, besides the one on the wing, doing it that many times sometimes it's a little bit, it's so fun. I love it. It's the best, especially if I'm in a dress.
I think I'm noticing a little bit of sarcasm from my wife. She doesn't like helping, apparently.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I like helping. I have nothing wrong with helping. I'm just saying that it's having to, especially when you're hungry. And we landed, I was starving when we were landing, which doesn't change my recommendation on the food, by the way. But I was starving when we landed. And so having to take all the cameras off when you're hungry, you know me. I don't function well when I'm hungry. I'm a little gremlin when I'm hungry.
You're functioning pretty well right now, and you've told me a few times you're hungry.
I am hungry, but I'm pushing through.
I greatly appreciate that. Of the adventures that we've gone on so far, I have an idea of what your favorite adventure is, but I'm going to let you tell me and maybe confirm that.
My birthday surprise. That was a great adventure, and I didn't know what we were getting into initially, which I just love not knowing what we're doing. It's my favorite. I think I asked you, I don't know how many times, what the surprise was. Because I don't hate being surprised. That's a lie. I like being surprised, but traveling is one of my biggest anxiety factors. Not knowing was scary. The initial thing you had told me was Santa Barbara. We flew down to into Fallbrook to be able to spend a weekend with my family, which was awesome. We had a surprise party down there for me, which was even better to be able to see all of my family, including one of my best friends from high school. I initially thought, I was thinking in my head, you said Santa Barbara. And I was like, great, we're going to fly into somewhere on the coast, probably in Southern California, which would be awesome, and spend a weekend away together. And I was thinking beach. You told me to pack swimsuits, etc. We were staying at a beach. It was just Carlsbad Beach, not Santa Barbara. So, which was totally great because I love Carlsbad. It's where I grew up. Going to the beach. So for me, it's very nostalgic and it feels like home. That flight was interesting to say the least. I think you pulled it off so well, but it's the longest flight you've done, right? It was 4 hours going down?
I think the total trip going down took us about 5 hours, and that's plugging in the stop in Paso Robles to use the restroom. You want to talk about what happened there?
Yeah. Well, I didn't know what our final goal or plan was. So in my head, I'm like, oh, Santa Barbara, not that far. I'll be fine. And then I had to really ask him. We were near Paso Robles, and I knew that was the next airport we were going to be flying over, at least. And my question to you, I was like, can I go to the bathroom? Like, kind of, not like, it's not an emergency. You know, when are we landing? What's happening next? Oh, well, we'll land probably in the next like hour and a half, maybe. Like, great. I could hold that. I'm so grateful that you were like, you need to make a decision right now. Do you go? And I said, yes, take me to the bathroom. Absolutely, please. Because we didn't end up landing in Santa Barbara. And I would have been panicking if we had just flown over. Like, that overcast, the skies, they were so bad. There's 0% chance you would be able to land. And then I would have been screwed.
That is 100% true. It was IFR conditions the entire way down along the coast with low-hanging clouds. And a big part of the issue there was June gloom. In California, we've got it bad here on the West Coast. It was all the way down, and we could see it as we were in Hollister looking west. You could see the clouds. However, the forecast kept telling us that the clouds were supposed to burn off by 10, then by noon, then by 1 o'clock. And by the time we got towards Santa Barbara, they absolutely did not burn off. So that was a big adventure and a big lesson and learning happened for both of us. Never trust the weather. Always have an alternate, which is exactly what we had to do. We diverted. Our original plan was to fly into McClellan Airport, which is in Carlsbad. Beautiful airport, great FBOs. I called ahead, had them ready for me, could have parked the plane inside in case it rained, all of those things. As we approach, we're maybe 10, 15 miles out, and we're seeing that it's overcast, so I had to divert, and we ended up going about 20 or so miles east to Fallbrook, which we were able to land. Again, I hated my landing there also, but we had about a 30-minute wait or so until my parents were able to pick us up. So naturally, what did I do?
You did the landing again, which is I think we filled the plane up and then you immediately got back on the taxiway and got back to trying it out. I think, what's your motto around if you have a bad landing?
I do have a motto after a bad landing, and that motto goes, get your candy ass back in that plane and land it again. Stick that landing. Don't walk away from the aircraft after a bad landing, because it's going to be on your mind. You're going to be thinking about it, doubting yourself. And to me, it's very important to walk away with a landing that you're proud of and that leaves you feeling confident and happy. With that being said, I'm not telling you to go out and fly in conditions that you're not capable of. If you had to kind of do some sort of an emergency landing in a situation where the winds are more than you would say your limits are, but you had no other options, I'm not saying go around and do that again.
Yeah.
Just to be clear.
That makes sense. But I think it was right around, once you realized there's no chance we're going to land in Santa Barbara, you handed me your iPad, and you're like, okay, here's what we're actually doing. Cat's out of the bag. I just have to tell you. I think it was in that moment I realized why it's so important to have a co-pilot who is willing to step in and help, has enough knowledge and understanding of what we're doing to be able to help. And I just felt very useful. I think that was one of my things. I was like, I can be very useful to you. It's like, it's a stressful situation in the LAX airspace. What can I do to help you? What's the next step? Like, what can I do? And I remember, I think I put in all the waypoints going down, and we did still log it into the Palomar Airport, but we ended up switching it once we realized there was no chance it was going to clear up by the time we actually got down there. But I would like to share, I know I said I have a problem with being hungry. Did we land for lunch?
No, our original plan, the original hoax was to land for lunch, but due to IFR conditions, she definitely understood. We had snacks. We tore those snacks apart, drank water, didn't have to use the restroom, thankfully, until we landed.
All in all, I think it worked out perfectly. The whole thing was amazing. It was a really fun trip. And it's something I definitely think we should do again. It was a great time. It was a great surprise for me. I loved being able to hang out and be with my family and your parents. And I think overall, just a good experience for the two of us. You obviously for flying that long distance, but me just being able to be your partner in the sky. Don't necessarily, I don't know if I'd call myself a co-pilot because I don't have a license or a certificate, but you know.
Pilot, passenger, princess. Hell yeah.
If I was a passenger princess, I'd be sitting there just reading my book. La-di-da.
Not if you wanted to live, you wouldn't.
Yeah, I was not reading my book. I was paying attention, looking for traffic, plugging in waypoints, those kind of things. So, yeah.
Things got kind of hairy, as she was saying. Not hairy in a scary way, but just the aspect of, hey, we're going to be entering the Class Bravo airspace in probably about 15 minutes or so. I definitely reached out and talked to ATC and said, hey, my original plan is to fly the VFR Special Flight Rules area over LAX. Is that still available or an option? They told me, no, that is what I had prepped. That is what I had known. That is what I was ready for. I already had the VOR dialed in, but I couldn't see the ground. So they actually gave us the coastal route at 5,500 feet. And that is off of one of the LAX VORs. I don't remember off the top of my head, but Tatum was huge in helping to plug those waypoints in as we were flying by way of VORs, using the GPS, and even the autopilot, which was definitely awesome. So she learned how to do and use both. I remember something funny with the autopilot. Do you remember what happens when you turn it off?
It's terrible. I don't know why they designed it this way. I mean, I understand, but I also don't get it. It like screams at you. It's this bleeping sound, and it goes autopilot off or autopilot on. I don't know. Does it say on or off, or does it just say autopilot?
I think it just screams when it's going off to let you know it's disengaging.
No. It screams.
It doesn't scream both ways. I believe it screams going off. It goes autopilot. On the on, it might beep.
Okay.
But either way, it's extremely loud.
It's scary. I think it scared me. You warned me, and it still freaked me out. And like every time, like, oh, okay. And it's also louder in my headphones than like us talking to each other or the general chatter on the radio.
You talked about noise and the general chatter on the radio. Do you care to elaborate a little bit about what was going on through that LA Bravo area?
It was LA and all the way down to John Wayne. I feel like that whole section, it was just constant. You could not get a word in edgewise. Like it was constant. I think even you declaring that you were in a different airspace at one point, you couldn't do it for a couple minutes because it was just so consistent with chatter. It's ridiculous. We couldn't talk to each other. It was really like silent noise. We were just listening to other people talk about. But it was interesting to hear like, oh, Southwest this, Alaska this, United this. That was really interesting to be able to, like, I never thought I was going to be hearing that kind of stuff over, I don't know, while I'm in a plane flying over LAX. Never thought that was going to happen. So. Interesting.
Right. That was a great 10-hour or so adventure flying to and from. We had an amazing weekend. I'm glad that you partook. You've definitely been learning a lot about aviation in terms of flying, how the controls work, obviously the GPS, the autopilot, just even inspecting the plane and doing a pre-flight. And how would you say that process has been?
Pretty good. I feel like I have a good understanding, and I like to have an understanding of what we're doing when we're flying. Just so, again, I think it's a safety thing too. As a partner of someone who is a pilot, it would make sense that I know enough that if something was to go wrong, I could take over, I could help. I know general like rules and things. And I think it was kind of fun because I did a lot of that too when I was helping you study for your exam. I spent a lot of time like quizzing him, giving him questions. And I did the same thing for you when you were in the academy for the fire department. So I feel like we're really good at quizzing each other and helping each other study. But it was constant. I mean, for like weeks there before you took your test, I feel like I had this book.
Oh, man.
I had this book, the oral exam. I had it constantly, and I was like flipping through it. I would just like flip to a random page. One of my favorite is here. It says, what four strokes must occur in each cylinder of a typical four-stroke engine in order for it to produce full power? And now the answer seems pretty innocent. It's intake, compression, power, and exhaust. But my favorite note, and it's even highlighted in here, it says, remember, suck, squeeze, bang, blow.
Yo.
I think that became a really consistent joke for a while. It was just like, oh yeah, don't forget, suck, squeeze, bang, blow. It was hilarious.
Thanks to that note there, when that question came up about, the four strokes of an engine came up on my check ride, I looked at the man, I said, suck, squeeze, bang, blow. He looked at me and said, what? I said, my bad. And then, repeated what it actually was. And we both giggled and laughed about that for a while. So I definitely appreciate that.
Despite the funny part, I think it definitely helped me. Helping you study helped me understand more about the airplane, which I would recommend for anybody who is going to be a partner of someone, whether you are a good friend of someone who's going into aviation or your spouse, whatever, your partner. You should know something. You should not go in blind. It would just naturally is something. I'm a curious person by nature, and so I want to know more about what you're doing and how you're spending your off time. And so I think for me that was just an important safety thing too, beyond being interested in what you're doing.
Do you remember your reaction the first time that I was trying to show you how flying works in terms of the flight controls and hand them off to you?
Of course I remember. Did not like it. I just don't feel like I'm qualified to take over the controls. Like, why give me the controls? I'm not qualified. And I understand that I should know the basics of it, but does it panic me? Absolutely. It's like when I'm playing a video game with you and you give me the controller, like you go to the bathroom and you're playing, I don't know, Call of Duty with your buddies, and you give me the controller because you're going to the bathroom, and I just am sitting there like in a corner. I like throw the controller. I can't handle myself. I'm just too anxious to handle it. I'm like, no, I can't do it. Don't make me do it. Same thing happened with the bike control. I mean, I was calmer about it because I knew it was a serious situation, and I knew you had the controls too. It wasn't like you were giving it completely over to me. The panic was definitely there. I was panicking 100%.
Speaking of panic, I remember our first flight. There was a moment of panic. We were flying.
Gall.
No, that's a different moment. That's hilarious.
Oh.
The moment I'm talking about, you and I were flying. We were heading out to Petaluma.
Oh,
Just
yes.
over your friend Amanda's house, pointing out the Richmond Bridge, and we hit a bit of turbulence. It had a quick bounce.
Oh yeah, I definitely. And I think you caught it on camera too. I definitely like grabbed my chest and then let out a little squeak for sure.
She definitely went, oh.
Oh.
Man, I was busting up laughing.
Nothing like the time I was dancing in the back of the plane, right?
That was so funny.
That was going to be a big problem. That's funny.
So a little bit about that story. I was still a student pilot at the time. We were flying with my flight instructor, who's one of our best friends. We went out to Rio Vista for Airport Day, which has, a car show, flying event, food trucks, a lot of fun. And I actually only had one headset. We couldn't get our hands on another one to borrow or rent from anybody. So she's in the back listening to music with her Apple AirPods in, and we're flying back home, and Gall's looking at me. He's wondering why the plane is like rocking. He's like, what are you doing with your feet? Are you on the rudder pedals dancing? WTF, bro, Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. What's going on here, right? So finally, I'm like, it's not me. We look back, and Tatum is back there doing what now?
Oh, I was like full on just dancing. I was like shaking back and forth. Didn't realize that I was shaking the entire plane by dancing to the music. Sorry, I just like dancing to music, but
Tatum's back there just rocking the whole aircraft, not realizing the plane itself weighs about the same amount as the three of us combined. But it was hilarious. We all got a great laugh out of that one.
Because I remember seeing Gall start to panic. I remember seeing it on his face, this look of panic, like, what is going on? I was like, that's weird. I wonder what's happening. And I just kept dancing. And then he looked back. I was like, oh, it's me. I'm the problem.
Bro, madness. That was way too funny. Are there any places or destinations that you're excited to go? Airports on your list or places to visit and stay?
Yeah, I think it would be, I think I mentioned this to you multiple times now, but Monterey, I think would be really cool. I know with the cloud coverage, that can be really tricky to pull off. I'd love to be able to do that though. I think just exploring the little places we've been, and you do such a good job looking up the places and finding places to eat too. But just like those little places we've been to, the little airports, the little cafe or diner has been so cool. I want to do more of that too. I'll take anything. I'll be honest with you. Any adventure in the sky has been fun so far with you. So I think Monterey is one of my biggest wants to, because I'd love to see that from the sky as well. But I know that's a hard one to pull off with the typical conditions that you get.
Hopefully things clear up in later July or August so we can make that flight happen. I'm excited for that as well. I also really want to fly into Watsonville, which is actually right outside of Santa Cruz, so kind of the same bay as Monterey. They're supposed to have some of the best food at Ella's, which is a diner on their airfield that a few pilots in the flying club I'm looking to join have been talking about. So that's high up on my list. You already know my number one destination that I want to fly into. Well, there's two, but the number one is definitely Catalina Island for me. That approach looks amazing. A weekend getaway trip.
I was thinking Belize. I know that's a long-term goal, but I think flying into a Caribbean country like that, especially your home country, would be really cool. I think that would be an awesome, I know that's probably down the line quite a bit for us, but that's something I'm looking forward to, those adventures as well. The little ones and the big ones, I think they're all have their own, uniqueness to them. I like all of them.
I think it's going to be amazing. I definitely do want to fly into the Caribbean. One of the challenges with that, though, is those trips usually would be, 2-3 weeks at least.
Mm-hmm.
So for things like that, it's kind of better to have your own aircraft. You can get away with it in a flying club here and there. But to be fair to the other members who are flying and also partial owners in the planes, it's not necessarily well received for you to use the plane for a full month.
That makes sense.
It can be done here and there, but I think at that point we'd want to be closer to exploring airplane ownership. Mooney M20J, here we come. I'm super pumped.
We're talking down the line.
Down the line, maybe sooner than later, we'll figure that one out.
It's a debate and argument for another day. So
Most definitely. Most definitely. But airplane ownership is definitely in the future for us.
you know how I feel. I feel very reserved. But I think, again, it has to do with, we still are only 2 years into, like not even 2 years into owning our house. And
In closing, do you have any wisdom you'd like to impart on the significant other of a pilot or someone becoming a pilot that they can show, again, this podcast, share with their significant other to say, hey, look, here's the situation. I fully understand your reservations. Here's a fellow pilot. His wife had the same. And now look at what they're doing.
I think it's all about communication. I think that's true for anything you do with your partner or with your significant other, but just communicate with them. Talk about where you're nervous about it. Are you even someone who's going to want to go on the airplane? 'Cause I know there's a lot of people who I talk to that are like, absolutely not. I would never go on an airplane like that small. Where I had no problem with it. It didn't bother me in the least bit. I knew I would be comfortable going up with you. So I think just communicate about it. Everything, whether it's about what you want to do with it. How are you going to be involved in it? How much time is this going to take you? What's the financial responsibility you're now taking on because of this? And obviously it's going to look different from partner to partner. It's all about just talking together and figuring it out, making sure it's working. And I think for us, it worked beautifully. Sure, it took you a lot of time, took you a lot of money, but I think in the long run, it's been a really fun adventure for us to do as a couple. And just like a fun new thing for us to explore together, which is always something I'm looking for. So I've been very happy about it. I think it's been a really fun experience for both of us.
Awesome. I'm super pumped to explore. Can't wait to start doing it in an aircraft that travels faster than 107 knots so that we can make that trip down to LA, San Diego, Palm Springs in sub 3 hours. That would be truly amazing.
Yeah, that would be incredible, especially thinking about like how much time it takes you when you do a regular airplane. You're 2 hours early, and then you have to go through TSA, and then you have to wait for your plane. Your plane could get delayed. And you know me, I always end up with delayed planes. That seems to be my typical issue. Yeah, so I'm very, very pleased if it only takes me 3 hours. Because realistically, that flight should only be an hour max from San Francisco. And, it ends up taking half your day because that's how airplanes work these days. So,
seeing that you were talking about a commercial airplane and flying commercial, what is the biggest adjustment that you've had to make flying in a small Cessna?
I'm used to drinking coffee right before I get on an airplane because I can use the restroom. Can't do that in a small plane. Also, there's no food service. Like, where's my flight attendant?
Yo, you are...
Amanda should just come with us.
Yo, you are the food service. You're the one that reaches in the back seat and grabs the snacks, okay?
I know.
You're the food service.
Mm-hmm.
But a bit more what I was getting into or asking was, what skill have you been forced to develop? I always tease you about something when you travel.
Oh, packing.
You're great at packing, but you overpack.
There is just this idea of like comfortability with the outfits you choose. And I'm not one to pack an outfit for an event. I'm a one to pack 3 outfits for an event because I never know how I'm going to feel when I get there. Not being able to just pack a huge suitcase and be like, I'm checking it. Who cares? Because it's free checked baggage. And my big suitcase doesn't even fit in a set. Not alone, it would weigh way too much as well. So that's, I think, definitely a huge adjustment for me. I kind of forgot. See how I've just like pushed that back in my head. I've forgotten that that's something I have to work on.
Oh, I'm aware.
Yeah.
I'm well aware.
Yeah.
Normally for a weekend trip, you pack a big 55-pound roller bag that would have to be checked, and then you pack another roller carry-on.
Yeah.
And now we're down to roller carry-on and a bag.
That's a huge adjustment that I will have to start getting more used to. Although I did a decent job, I feel, going down to San Diego. No?
I agree 100%. You packed appropriately. You didn't overpack. You made weight. We were never worried about weight because the useful load on the airplane we were flying is something like 886 pounds. You put our 2 weights together plus full fuel, we're somewhere around 700, leaving us 180 something pounds for luggage and baggage and whatever else.
My mom did think of that when she was getting, which is so funny. My mom's so supportive of all of this too. But she definitely, I think, thought of all of that when she was doing all my gifts for my birthday, which is hilarious. Even to the point of, oh, I can always ship it up to you if need be, which I greatly appreciate.
Speaking of the support from your family and parents, when I got my certificate a handful of months ago, they actually were the first ones to send me up a card. And they wrote inside the card, it says, "Say, pilot, I'm free. Wow, Osa, what a feat." May the wind always be at your under your wings, and I can't wait to fly with you someday. Locke, that's her father's name. And her mom wrote, Osa, firefighter and pilot, amazing, great job. We know you worked really hard on this. Congrats. And boy, did I. I struggled with landings for probably 50 hours, banging, and I'm pretty sure in the next episode I will have my CFI Gall on, and he'll be able to share some laughs and tell you about some of these rough-ass landings. He's insane for staying in the plane with me for that long, because I would have been like, nope, not doing this shit again.
Yeah, but I think that just speaks to your support system that you had around you while you were undergoing your pilot. I think that's so important too, is to have a good support system. And when you hit those frustration points, what are you going to do? Who's going to get you out of it? Who's going to talk you down? And you definitely would come home. I remember there's the days you'd come home super frustrated, and I just let you talk it out and hear what you had to say.
All right, well, as we wrap this thing up, or as I like to say, as we land the plane and bring this thing home, thank you guys for listening. Tatum, thank you for sharing your experiences, your fun, and the laughter. Please like, comment, share with your significant other, share with any friend that you have that is looking to get into aviation. Maybe they have to have this similar conversation with their wife or significant other. Again, thank you so much. I'm your host, O.